As a kid, you just want to fit in. You don't care about getting extra attention. I think there was a gap where people didn't really know who we are, what we're about, and they're like, oh, they do this yoga or they're different. There's nothing I can do, but I can control how I act. I can't control how other people act.
What has been the hardest point in your life, if you look back?
Yeah.
And how you sprung back from there?
Yeah. I think probably for me, it was really like when I went to boarding school in India, I was this white kid in India. And at that time, there were very few people who were Sikhs from a Western background. So people stared at me there, and it was, as a kid, you just want to fit in. You don't care about getting extra attention. And people, in India too, there's not the stigma about staring. People will just be like blatantly just like, they don't, you look at them, they don't even flinch. So
I completely agree.
So being different, and it was kind of a novelty, I think, for many people. And then coming back to America, looking different here as well, but also within the greater Sikh community. I think there was a gap where people didn't really know who we are, what we're about, and they're like, oh, they do this yoga or they're different, or they're not really sure. So I always felt like there was a level of judgment that, oh, they think that they're better than us, or criticisms about things. So as a teenager, especially, I would say that was definitely the hardest, because this was something new that my parents came into and then I grew up into. And we never had like a rule, like a book of how to do all these things. All of my parents, when they came on, they didn't know how to do a Gurdwara or how to do anything. They had to figure it out all from scratch, and they didn't know Punjabis. So everything had to be created in English. So even to this day, most of the Ardasas will happen in English. And in those early days, long before Sikhi to the Max and all those things, from the early days, we had Shabad sheets, and there would be file cabinets and file cabinets of these sheets with the Gurbani, the transliteration, and the translation, because it was important for us to be able to understand and know and be able to take part. So all these things kind of came up as part of that. And I think because things were so new and many people were coming on this path, that many people didn't, there was a lot of mistakes made, and I'm sure there still are many mistakes made of new people that are coming in. But feeling that kind of judgment and that criticism has kind of, I think, shaped, for me, the focus of SikhNet, because for SikhNet, I always look at it as, this is a neutral place that everybody is welcome, and that it's really between an individual and their own spiritual path, their guru, or whatever you want to call it, for them, how they want to practice. Because too often we look through our own lenses, our own filter, and we like, okay, this is how I do it. And then I look at somebody else. Oh, they're not doing it how I'm doing it. And it's easy for our minds. And it's not to say that I don't have those thoughts, but it's about being aware of, when I see somebody who does something differently that I don't agree with, how do I reconcile that in a way that I can still be accepting and see them as a person and try to open up my awareness. So that's probably, I would say, really lightly and without going into much detail, I think that's probably been my biggest challenge. And I think, how did I get through that? I think just knowing that there's always, like with SikhNet, being somebody who's in a visible way, I tend to become a target for hate and nasty comments, and I've had them since the very beginning. From when I first started SikhNet, I'd have a F-U, M-F, like blatantly abusive. And I think people, the way that I reconcile that is that I know that when I'm feeling angry or upset in my life, that's how I see the world. And so it gives me compassion when I see other people coming at me with anger and frustration, that I know that, okay, this is just potentially a reflection of what's going on inside them. And that if they can't come to the point of, opening their eyes a little bit wider or talking to me in a way to actually try to relate to me, then, there's nothing I can do. But I can control how I act. I can't control how other people act.